was thinking that on my way in today.
Yeah, because you met Mom when you were still in the Army, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay, so you met her at a Salvation Army in, where was it, in Toronto or?
Ottawa.
In Ottawa, and she was there visiting
Yeah.
with someone. So they met in the Salvation Army, and you were stationed in Ottawa?
Yes.
Okay, and then you would go to visit her in
Toronto.
Where was she born, or where did she live then?
Long Branch.
Long Branch.
Where's Long Branch?
It's
Just outside of Toronto. So
yeah, it's
smaller.
one of those smaller communities, and then so you met her there, and then you would come to visit her in Long Branch and stay overnight at her dad's or at the parents' house.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you would come there by train
Yes.
and go back to your station by train, and that was in Ottawa.
Yeah.
So did the war end when you were stationed in Ottawa?
Yes.
Okay.
And when I was coming to Toronto one weekend, the carriage was full. And right down at the end was the double seat sitting there where you had to ride backwards to Toronto. And there was an Air Force fella and a sailor sitting here, opposite. So I sat here. And that was the Army, Air Force, and Navy, the three of us. And this big fella came walking down the aisle with his briefcase in his hand and newspaper under his arm. Says, "Seat taken, it will be when you sit down." So he hung his hat up and his briefcase and his coat, sat down, folded the paper, and he had it up like this. Supposed to be reading, but he was no more reading than I was. He was listening to the Air Force fella and the Navy and I talking, Army business. And they howled over the door, "Dinner's now been served in the dining car." And the big fella stood up and he says, "Are you fellas coming?" We had no money, just enough to get to Toronto and home again. And he says, "Well, you'll come to me." And I got up and followed him in. I knew I had enough money to buy a sandwich, and that was about it. So anyway, I got in there. They came along and they handed us the liquor menu. It was snapped out of my hand, and he ordered. So then the dinner menu came. They handed me my menu and his. Mine was snapped out of my hand, and I was ordered a great big beef steak dinner and everything. What's going on here? I'll be washing dishes in this car for a month. So anyway, we went in, we eat, and we drank the big glass of liquor, and he handed me a cigar about this long, and I never smoked a cigar in my life before. Well, anyway, we went back and got into our seat. I wonder, there's something funny about this fella. So anyway, when I got off the train, I says, "I think it's time that you and I got acquainted." I says, "I'm Private Orr," I said, "from stationed in Ottawa." "Yeah," he says, "I'm Paul Martin from Essex County, the big member of Parliament." So the taxpayers was paying for my dinner.
Wow. So this is the Paul Martin
Paul's father.
Jr.'s father. Oh, wow. Oh, cool. Well, that was nice of him.
Yeah.
Well, I got a big dinner out of it.
Yeah.
But he didn't pay my free ride to Toronto.
No.
but I got there. It was half fare for us.
Yes. So, so you were still stationed in Ottawa, and the war ended then,
Yeah.
when you were in Ottawa. So
Yeah.
1945?
1940.
1945. And then you continued to go and stay with Mom's family
Yeah.
in Long Branch. And so you got the job, when you were working in Toronto as a herdsman, you decided to go into the army after that.
From there.
From there, okay. So then you and Mom decided to get married.
Yeah.
And did you get married in Long Branch, around that area?
It was just in that area.
Yeah. Because I remember seeing you in
New
your
Toronto we got married in.
New Toronto. Because you had your army uniform on, and then your best man also had his army uniform on
Yeah.
as well. So then, how did you find out about the Biggs job?
Well, I went down to Quebec to work on a farm, and I could no more stand it there than I could move.
Did Mom come with you?
Yes.
She came with you to Quebec?
We were down in Quebec about 3 months, and we ordered the Globe and Mail. We saw this job in the paper, and so applied for it. And they had already got a fella for that job. So, anyway, I'm quitting this job. I'm not staying here working in this place. So we come up to Ontario, and we met Bill Walton and Aunt Mary, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew Big, so they called up and wanted to know if I had got a job there. Now, no, they had already hired a fella.
Right.
So anyway, he wasn't planning out, so they called Bill Walton and asked if they could get in touch with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was on my way up to Toronto at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a job with Biggs.
So Biggs was a big cattle dairy farmer.
He was a big
Dairy farmer.
Ayrshire herdsman
Ayrshire.
farm, yeah.
Yeah. So that was, what's that corner that you go around?
Christie's Corner.
Christie's Corners, just past Christie's Corners. And so you and Mom decided, so there was a house included,
Yeah.
as well as $100 each month,
And our milk and vegetables and fruit.
all included.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, but I could have made more money if I'd have went to the steel company.
Mm-hmm. But that was something you knew, was how to take care of cows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how long did you work there?
5 years.
Okay. And so that house is still there by Christie's Corners. They've adapted it and modernized it, but it's still there. But Biggs Farm is no longer operational. I took Dad, we went up there and cut through by the barn and everything where he used to work. But yeah. So what was Mom doing? She was doing things too.
She worked day here and there. She worked for Dick Biggs, Ted's brother, at cutting potatoes and picking potatoes, and
Okay.
she and Mrs. Allen, Charlie Allen's wife.
Oh, no relation to her. Okay.
No, they worked. Mrs. Allen's husband worked at Biggs's too.
Oh, okay.
He worked in the chicken business.
Okay. But Mr. Biggs, who was he? Tom? No, what was Mr. Biggs' name? The Ayrshire.
Ted.
Ted Biggs. Okay, Ted. And that was a big name back then, I guess, in farming. They had brothers and, agricultural stuff. And then how did you come to buy the property on Ann Street?
Well, we thought we'd been there long enough and it was time to branch out on our own. So Mother and her father were downtown and they got the paper and they saw this place for sale. So they went and saw it
Mm-hmm.
and we bought it.
How much was it?
Oh, I don't know, $8,000, I think.
And that came with how much property?
8 3/4 acres.
Yeah. So this is before all the condos and everything were there. So then you moved there.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And where was Grandpa? Where was he living? In Hamilton?
No, he lived in Long Branch. Then he came up and stayed in Hamilton for a while. And then he bought that house at the end of
Park Street.
Park Street.
Yeah.
And
It
he
was
got,
actually on York and
Yeah.
Park, that just directly, yeah, sorry.
so that's about the extent of it.
So then, so you weren't in the dairy business anymore? Okay. So what did you do when you moved to Ann Street?
I worked as a carpenter at Cumming and Franklin's Lumber.
Mm-hmm.
For them, I worked in the shop.
And where was the shop?
Right there at across from the school.
Which,
The district school was on this side of the road. There was a park there.
yeah,
And right behind the park was Cumming and Franklin's.
oh, okay, District High School, where there's now
On Brock
condos.
Street.
On Brock, okay, yeah, oh, okay. So how did you get to work every morning?
I lived right beside it. And I walked.
Oh, you walked down, you cut through.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Did you cut through the golf? No, you wouldn't have to cut through the golf course, would you?
Just up over the hill. And
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. So, did you have a car yet?
Car? Yeah.
Car. Did you have a car?
Yeah.
Oh, how come you didn't drive?
Well, I drove sometimes.
Mm-hmm. So, I know our house was at the top of a hill, and we had 52 steps going up to it.
I don't know how many of those.
I remember. But I think I was I was 5 when we moved here to Park Street. So I have a very good memory of things then, as much as a child can, because my sister's 3 years younger and my brother was 4 years younger. And so they don't really remember, they wouldn't have remembered much about Ann Street, but I did. So our,
David was only 6 or 7 months old
Yeah.
when we moved.
yeah. So we had, from my recollection, we had a lot of fruit trees.
Pears and cherries and that.
Yeah. And also, didn't Mom have a market garden of sorts?
Yeah, she got the stuff ready and I delivered it at night.
So what did she have in her garden?
Vegetables and fruit. And we had honeybees.
Right. So you were selling local produce.
That's right.
I do remember going around with you and selling honey, but I can't remember the vegetable part.
How did you get into, how did you find people to sell it to initially?
Get into that line of work.
Yeah, how did you find customers, basically?
Oh, we just went around and I knocked on the door and asked them if they want to buy this or that or are interested in stuff. And most of the people did.
Now, when you went around, was it in Dundas?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember going into Dundas with you. But, so were people repeat customers, like if they bought something from you?
They were good customers.
So we had eggs too, didn't we?
Yeah.
So that's how you worked during the summer, and so what did you do once the season was over?
Well, we had the chickens, and I had to deliver eggs.
So eggs and honey were still being delivered. Did Mom cook any? I know she did a lot of canning. Did she sell her canning at all? No, we just ate it. Yeah. So then, what were you? So how long did you work for Cumming and Franklin, the wood people?
Oh, I worked in Cumming and Franklin for about 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Then what did you decide to do?
Well, they went broke. So I went to the golf course. I was there about 4 weeks or so, 3 or 4 weeks. And I didn't like that. So I went to work for Fuller Brush as a salesman.
Mm-hmm.
I was there about 3 weeks or so, and I thought, enough of this. And the boss came along one day, and it was hot in the summertime, and he goes like this, "Don't forget to shave tomorrow morning." I says, "No, I won't forget to shave tomorrow morning." So he went and got into his car, and I went down the street and got into my car. He went his way. My next stop out of there, I got into the car, and I drove from there back to Dundas and went into Snitzinger's and got a job. The next morning I was working at Snitzinger.
Which is the same property site that Penn Cashway was on, which is where Shoppers Drug Mart is. Yeah, yeah. So, because Philip Brush, you used to have to go door to door, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember these combs and things that you had. Like you had stuff. What did you sell? Like
Oh, it was everything.
like shaving kits.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
Cleaning material.
Right. But you had a briefcase, didn't you?
Well, you had this satchel that you bought from them.
Mm-hmm. And so that was all your stuff. So did you have to take all that stuff and give it back to them that you had left?
I had to give it back to them, and then I got my money back.
I see. So then you went to work at Snetzinger, so you were still living on Ann Street then.
Yeah.
Had I arrived at any point?
Yeah, you were there at Ann Street.
Mm-hmm.
And David and Wendy were born at Ann Street.
Right. And then when did you decide to move across from the museum on Park Street?
When we sold the farm at Ann Street.
Why did you sell it though? So we could be closer to the schools?
No, I sold it because I could make $1.
Oh, do you remember how much you sold it for?
I sold it for double what I paid for it.
That was after how many years living there?
Oh, about 5 years or 6 years.
But I remember as a kid, we went back to see somebody tried to burn it down. I think they eventually succeeded. But that property sat vacant for how many years before they built those condos?
Oh, it didn't stay too long.
No? I remember it
3
being...
years or so.
Oh, I remember it being longer for some reason. So you decided because you could make some money, you sold that property.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice. It was beautiful because you had this view everywhere because you were at the top of this hill. And yeah.
I sold it for double what I paid for it.
Mm-hmm. And then you bought this house from the Peary ladies.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you remember how much you paid for this house? On Park Street here?
Yes, I remember how much I paid for it. she wanted $10,000 and I offered her 8.
Mm-hmm.
And all right, she would take $8,000, but it had to be cash.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the time, I didn't have my money from the other place, so I couldn't give her cash. So the lawyer, Mr. Matheny,
Oh yes, John Matheny.
he says, just a minute. So he went out into the waiting room, and he come back in and he said, here's a man that'll lend you the money. So he loaned me the money. I was getting 6.5% interest from the other company, and this fellow was charging me 6, so I was making 0.5% interest on there, right there. So he loaned me the money. I bought the place, saved $2,000 from Peary's.
All right. Do you know who the man was that lent you the money?
Not remembering now.
No. Oh, that was nice. So then, when we moved here, I remember it was a fairly different street, wasn't it? So you had to just go out our backyard and around, and there you were at work.
Yeah,
Yeah. How many years did you work for them, for Snutzingers?
8. I drove a truck.
Right. I remember you took me on a couple jaunts that you had to do in the evening or something, delivering wood. And Dad used to know where every street was. You knew every, like Hamilton, didn't you, Dad? You knew your way around.
Well, you do if you're on a truck every day on the road.
Yeah. So then, when did Mum resume her teaching career? Because I actually had her as a supply teacher once when I was over here at Central.
Just when David started to school.
Yeah. So, this was our, just a very short jaunt away to go to school, and District High School was up at the end, and So then, when did you start working for the school board yourself? After Snutzingers?
Yeah, it was about 63, 64.
Right. And then you did that until you retired, right?
Yeah.
So Dad was over at Central for a little while, and then he went to Pleasant Valley School. So, and that's where he retired, but they've torn down Pleasant Valley School. That was a brand new school when you were there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember we had such big jade plants and things that Dad had to take them to the school so that they
Just grow.
Oh, they were huge, right, Dad? So then, after you retired, we were still at Park Street, and I kind of flitted all over the place, but then Mom and Dad decided that they were going to move down to the Park Street apartments. And so, but when I was growing up in Dundas, it was pretty basic stuff, like you had your drugstore, a couple of grocery stores.
Well, it was a small town then.
Mm-hmm. Where did you do your shopping? Like,
Oh, we did the most of it there, and the A&P.
yeah. So, what was your favorite store?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, Mullen's Drugstore was around the corner. Just, don't know what is
Church
there.
Street.
on Church Street, corner of Church and King. So I always used to go in there and look at makeup with my friends. We had no idea what we were doing. We just looked at it. Yeah.
Well, you used to work there yourself.
At Mullins?
When they went into a travel agency.
Oh, yes. It turned into a travel agency. And at one point in my life, I was a travel agent. So I used to work there in that place. Now I'm not quite sure what it is, but yeah. So, and I guess, any other questions? Yeah. So they had like a farmer's market down every Thursday, I remember. I wonder if the one has changed.
It was at Cowper's, right behind their
where
parking
TD Bank is. That used to be Cowper's.
Sydenham Street.
Yeah, Sydenham and there. A little woodpecker out there, cute little fella. I was trying to think.
So why did you decide to stay in Dundas? Is it just because it was small and nice?
Just liked it here.
Yeah. Nice place to settle, raise kids and whatnot.
Quiet town.
Was.
Well, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, people that move here, I think, from Toronto now consider this very quaint and quiet.
In comparison.
In comparison to the busyness of.
Wendy was about 14, 15. And on the first day of December, she and I started putting the siding on that house.
On
Just
our house
just on
across
Saturday.
Park Street, yeah.
And on Easter, we were finished, just working Saturdays.
Just all throughout the winter.
Yeah, and it's still
on.
there, and it still looks great. So that if she was 15, she's going to be 59 in June. So yeah, that's pretty good. So that's at 134 Park.
Okay.
Directly over there. So yeah, and Dad used to make a skating rink in the back for us in the winter, flood it, and it was a good place to grow up. You knew a lot of people from school, and there's a lot of people that are still very cliquey in their groups, of growing up, but it's so much bigger now. But I used to walk by these houses like every day, going to school, back and forth. So these, I guess for Dad too, well-traveled streets. And you like Dundas enough to stay, and you're still here, liking it. Yeah. Well, you know so many people, right? From church too.
Yeah. Yeah.
From the St. Paul's United Church. He's the eldest. He's the elder of the church, and we had I organized a big party for his 100th birthday there, so that was nice. Had a piper, which was the highlight of my sister's like, why did you hire a piper? Because I like pipe music. And whatever, just made it more festive. And that was a nice party, wasn't it, Dad?
Yeah.
It was, sorry, it's St. Paul's Church?
Yeah, St. Paul's United.
Going there basically since you kind of came into town?
I was beg your pardon?
Have you been going there since you came to town? We went to the
Since-
Baptist church for a little while.
No. We went to the Baptist church when there wasn't anything going on.
At St. Paul's? Oh, I see, okay. Yep, so they've been going to...
We started going to St. Paul's in about 51 or 52. We've been there ever since.
You just liked the way it was run and everything else? It just...
Yeah, the kids were in the choir and Sunday school, and I do remember you shipping us off to Salvation Army in the afternoon.
Yeah, well, that was just around on the other King
The other,
Street.
yeah. Which, you go to church in the morning. It's like, get rid of the kids in the afternoon. And then we went to Bible camp as well when we were kids, young. And they had crafts and, things. It was,
Keep you occupied.
Yeah. Especially me, I guess.
Were you troubled?
I don't know if I was.
We did a lot of traveling.
Did we?
You didn't. Mother and I.
Oh, okay. Travel, yes.
Where'd you travel to? What's your favorite travel destination?
Well, I'm like Dr. Wright's wife said. She liked to go here and she liked to go someplace different all the time, so we had no favorites, but they were all good. We never went at the wrong time of the year, we went at the right time. You can go at the right or the wrong, And we had a nice trip to Europe, all through England, Holland, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Italy, France, and back to England and home. There was over 480, something like that, on the plane. And we had a dandy trip that. And we were to the Caribbean twice on a cruise.
You went to Portugal.
I went to Portugal and Spain and Gibraltar.
Right.
And we were to Alaska. So we traveled around.
Mm.
And in the summertime when we were at home, we always took the kids to Port Dover and around to the parks, like swimming and that,
Mm-hmm.
And so there was three of you?
Mm-hmm.
How's that relationship? Or did you all get along decently, or was it just...
Well, my brother, who had passed away it's almost been a year since he's been gone.
It'd be the 5th of July.
Yeah.
It would be a year.
Yeah, and that's pretty tough for all of us. He and I got along quite well. Like, I was always tormenting him. He had very curly hair, and I was always playing with his ears and stuff. Even when he was sick, I was, touching his hand, very touchy-feely person. Whereas my sister and I get along, but it I don't know, just a little bit of tension there, I think sometimes things I did in my youth she resented, but for the most part we only had one big fight, and my brother was trying to pry us apart and she bit him. Yeah, I don't know where you Mom were maybe on one of your trips somewhere, and she was having a party over here or something, and I disagreed with it. And she also had a baby skunk that was stinking up the place, and she found it. It was really cute. And I don't know, we got into it, but my brother tried to pry us apart and got bitten. He never forgot that when he bit him. So, but yeah, they were more because they were just a year apart. They were together when they were little. I was off doing other things, even though I was 3 and 4 years older than my brother. So, when you're growing up, that's a bit of a difference. And I wasn't a homebody.
So you had to be out.
Yeah, I had to be out and about, and my mother, I know, would want me out. I never got grounded, ever. Because she had to be outside. Yeah. But, do you think I was trouble growing up, Dad?
Yes. We had enough trouble.
Yeah,
yes.
I did have a bit of a little thing when I was a teenager. You know, the hormones and yeah. People not understanding me. You know, that kind of stuff.
We got through it.
Oh, we do, yeah.
I say we got through it.
Yeah, we got through it, yeah. I turned out well on the other side, yeah. There was a hell period though. Of some, to put my parents through hell. And apparently my sister too, but I think my brother was just, such an easygoing guy. He just kind of, she goes again, whatever. We had a really good upbringing here, and mom and dad were excellent parents, as good as, they could be to a wildling like myself. But I stayed out late and that kind of stuff. Dad didn't like that. I used to drive around a car without a license because my friends, like stuff, things like that, and stop bys with this little car. I remember just, oh my gosh. Sorry, Dad. After all these years, I'm sorry I put you and Mom, everybody through that. You forgive me, right? Say yes, this is on camera, Dad. Yeah, it was a bit of a handful. But you still know lots of people though, right, Dad?
Oh, I
Still
know.
lots of people around that are there from, like, who do you think you know the longest in Dundas?
I know the longest in
That's
Dundas.
still around, that you've had any dealings with, or
No, I don't know. They're all dead now.
yeah, a lot of people are dead. But is there someone you see that you have known for like 50 or 60 years?
Well, I've known Alec Hunter for ever since I started going to the church.
In 1951.
Yeah.
So that's fair, and he's been going to the church as well for that long. Well, that's
Well, pretty close.
yeah.
I
Wow.
think he might have come a little later, but
Mhm. Wow.
there's only, 4 years difference in our ages.
Mhm. Right. Yeah. But Mom and Dad used to take a lot of trips with the museum too.
Oh yeah, I've heard.
Oh, the museum had good trips.
Yeah. When Olive Newcomb.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
But
she
when
used-
she left, things just went.
I've only been here for a year, so.
Yeah. Yeah, she also went to St. Paul's. And I knew her two twin daughters as well. We were in church and choir together. Bev and Pat.
But the museum is coming back.
Yeah.
New people took over, and
Yeah. Well, it's much different.
for a while there, after Olive Newman quit or passed away, and the new couple of young people took over, they couldn't handle it right.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's funny because living across from a museum all my life, practically, or for a good portion of years, I only came in here when visitors came. Like, I shouldn't say that. No, I did come in, but mostly when visitors came because they would want to see the museum.
Yeah, they'd be like, oh, what's this here? Oh,
Yeah.
this thing across the street.
Yeah.
from me? Yeah.
Well, I didn't look down on it, but that's also where, you would tell people, where do you live? I live across from the museum, because they would
It's
know.
pretty easy.
Yeah.
Landmark.
Yeah, landmark, exactly. And I know I'd been to a few places. I think it was Barbados. I was driving around in this thing, and nobody knew. There was no addresses anywhere. It was all by landmark. The big tree by the White House, by the, and it was kind of, okay.
Yeah, well, I guess you gotta keep your eyes.
And you're driving on the opposite side of the road. I do remember that, and it just got all screwy. But I found my way. But yeah, the landmarks were important. When you moved to Park Street, was it paved?
This paved road? Oh,
Yeah, was
yes.
this a paved road? And King Street was paved as well.
Yes.
Ann Street wasn't paved.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you guys ever spend much time at like the driving park?
Yeah. Dad used to take us swimming there all the time, and the summer, and they had, you know, seesaws and swings and things like that. And we'd go to the park for picnics too. Yeah, we went to the park a lot, you know, and even as
The kids used to be in the neighbor's swimming pool. They lived in it in the summertime.
who, Morrison's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Wendy was, I don't know, about 10 years old, but she was like a seal in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And Morrison's said, "You won't be able to come tomorrow because we're having company," to the kids, you see. So anyway, Wendy was here in the house. She was going someplace, and she was getting all ready to go, and a knock came to the door. And this lady asked if Wendy was here. Yes. So we called Wendy. "Would you come over to Mr. Morrison's pool? This lady lost her ring. It's down in the bottom of the pool, and
I never heard
and no one can go down and get it. We've all tried. Will you try?" So Wendy put on her bathing suit and she went over and they showed her where the ring was, and she looked down, she saw it. She dived in and come up with the ring.
Oh.
And to this day, that lady has never said thank you to her.
Oh.
High class.
Well, the Morrisons lived.
I mean, the Morrisons were all right, but this lady was high class.
Well, the Morrisons were an interesting family. They lived, well, there's a brick house next to our house, which Colin Mercer lives in. And then the Morrisons was the big old stone house there, that big house.
Okay.
And I think at one point it used to be a boys' school or something, because there's a laneway running behind our house, and we had an old stone barn there where they used to keep the animals, and that was the carriageway. But the Morrison, he was the Liberal leader,
Yeah,
was he?
no, not the leader. He was a member of
Or
Parliament.
member of Parliament. Forget, John Morrison, was that his name? John. So we used to kind of hang around with them. They kind of had a messed up family life, I realized after the fact. But that's, you know, a huge house, pool, you know. They named one of their children, her nickname was Bluey, because she was blue when she was born. One of those. So her name was Bluey, and I remember she had all these different animals, and she had a lamb once.
Yeah.
So I got her to bring it over, and you know, that kind of thing. It was kind of interesting.
The Morrisons were nice people.
Yeah. Remember, the oldest boy was John, and there was Peter, Kelly, and Bluey, who was Nancy. I think there was 4 of them. And they had dogs named Tarzan and Jane. They're labs. And they were kind of infamous because they would get out occasionally. And I remember Tom Charrington, who was a radio personality. He's passed away. A lot of older Dundas people would remember him. He would make an announcement. Tarzan and Jane have escaped again. And I'd be going around the neighborhood going, Tarzan, Jane. Yeah. These labs were infamous. And then when they passed, they got another 2 named Tarzan and Jane. It got a little crazy, but yeah. It was interesting.
So did you ever miss farming? Is what I just...
Did you ever miss farming, Dad?
No.
No.
It did for the first little while, but
Mhm. It's a hard life.
Yeah.
It's very physical.
well, it was hard, but you liked working on it.
Yeah. It's rewarding.
That's exactly the word I was thinking.
Hmm. It's rewarding. So growing up, I mean, I must have had the best diet of anybody. You know, for any kid could possibly want. You know, honey, eggs, chickens.
All
I mean,
fresh.
all fresh. Yeah, fruit, vegetables. I mean, I really got a good start on life. I remember I used to eat tomatoes like they were apples. I do remember that. And yeah, it was nice. And I do remember when I moved here how different it was. Like, because there was no, like, sort of, I don't know, it was just different because you were in a town. And there was this street, and you know, there were cars going, and you know, but
In them days, everyone knew one another.
yeah,
Today, you don't know your next door neighbor.
yeah. Sometimes no, yeah. But yeah, it was very friendly, and people Dad worked for, the guys, they were always nice. So
Yeah, that's good.
okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that last little bit of.
Yeah.
Unless you have any stories you want to share? No.
Not that he can think of right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably lots there, but you know.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
you gotta find them.
Yeah,
Remember
sometimes it
them.
takes a while. Oh yeah, and that triggers a thought of memory, and you know,